The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip, and you're a bit low.
Sorry about that. Now I'm much higher.
Now you're perfect. Now.
I should turn the mic on once in a while.
Yeah,
well, today is not a good day in Las Vegas, obviously. Currently, reports are there are over 50 people who are dead, and somewhere between 350 and 400 people who are seriously injured. And those numbers are still climbing. It's not definitely not a good day at Mandalay Bay.
Yeah, and you know, from all reports that we've had so far, I don't believe it has anything to do with terrorism.
Well, actually, moments ago, ISIS declared
that they had a
responsibility.
64-year-old guy that was living in an elderly residence. They radicalized him. Is that what they're saying?
Yeah. It's,
the last news I got, it wasn't, you know, that wasn't, because ISIS may claim anything that does damage, so.
Exactly. But, yeah, I'm looking at the story now, and they claim just about an hour, Islamic State claims responsibility for Las Vegas shooting 31 minutes ago. They claim that responsibility. I guess anything's possible. In Cairo, Islamic State has claimed responsibility for a shooting that killed at least 50 people and wounded over 400 in Las Vegas early on Monday, and said the attacker had converted to Islam a few months ago. The Las Vegas attack was carried out by a soldier of the Islamic State, and he carried it out in response to calls to target states of the coalition. The group's news agency, Amaq, said in reference to the U.S.-led coalition fighting the group in the Middle East, the Las Vegas attacker converted to Islam a few months ago, Amaq said. So, I mean, there you go. Now they're saying it's terrorism. So.
Well, you know, that's one of the problems with instantaneous news. You know, they talk about fake news, and sometimes it's not really fake. It's just that in the old days, it used to take them a little time to get this news to you, and in that time they could actually do thorough investigations. So how many times have we seen news media reporting things, and then they find out that those reports are inaccurate? Even if they ask people at the scene, they're getting, because the people at the scene really haven't seen the full impact. We saw, we see that all the time, and that's one of the problems. That's why sometimes when you see something like this, you know there was a tragedy, you know there were a lot of people that were killed and a lot of people injured, and that's basically the only thing you know for sure at this point in time, because everything is in kind of a state of flux. It's like, because they begin to get more news about it, and that news is a little bit more accurate, and then you find out that most of the time when you get these things, the initial reports you got were not really anywhere close to what actually happened. So as I said, this morning I was watching it all morning, and it was like, okay, they hadn't gotten the terrorism aspect into this, and I'm not sure if they'll actually be able to confirm in fact if it was or wasn't for a while, because they're going to have to go back. The only thing I did know was the individual who supposedly was helping this person was found.
Yeah, well, and they didn't. You know, when I was hearing that earlier, it's a woman, and it's not listed on whether she was helping or she was just a companion or a roommate or what it was. But the shooter is Stephen Paddock. He is 64 years old, and they're now looking into his social media accounts. They're looking across the board to see if they can find anything on why this gentleman did this. When this started, it started at about 10 o'clock Nevada time, which was about 1 o'clock our time in the morning. And according to all reports, it was like shooting fish in a barrel. You had all of these revelers who were there for a country western concert kind of penned into an area on Route 91, and the gentleman was on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel, and he either shot out the window or broke out the window, and he started firing a firearm down into the crowd. Now, there's questions on whether it was an automatic firearm, if it was a semi-automatic, what it was. Based upon what I'm hearing, and you're more of an expert than I am, I mean, it was nonstop. It was, you know, there was a pause, I guess maybe to change the clip or something. But I mean, they were just rapid fires. There wasn't any time in between them. So,
and you know, and some of these reports, and I've heard them, and you know, then I was getting ready. You know, I was getting ready to come to the show, and obviously I was watching it in the morning from fairly early in the morning. And there were reports that he had a lot of weapons in that in
yeah,
in
he had
room.
a cache of weapons in the room.
He had a cache of weapons, and that individual who was helping him was a former or is an employee of the Mandalay Bay. The Mandalay Bay is a very high-end hotel too. It's at the far end of the strip, closer to the airport. It's actually pretty well separated from most of the other casinos on the strip. You actually have to take a little short monorail ride from the Luxor over to the Mandalay Bay. And you know, when he talked about the window, initially, because I've been there, and I've been to a lot of hotels in Las Vegas, and those windows don't open. So when they said he broke a window or something, and then somebody there was one report that he was on the rooftop, you know, and so all these things, as I said, again, we're getting more and more of these reports, and you know, at some point in time, you know, they'll sort it all out. But the problem you have now is when it's an active crime scene, they don't just let reporters run around up there and take pictures yet. So it's going to be here. You know, they'll talk to someone and they'll get a story, and they're going to change it a little bit.
Yeah, the police broadcast, which I listened to, was they were getting into his room. Yeah. And you heard the SWAT officers saying, stand back, we're about to breach, and then he went, breach, and then you heard the explosion. So they blew the door off the room. That wasn't on the roof, that was the room. Yeah. So obviously the gentleman was in the room, just based upon that one recording that was available. It's just very interesting to see how already, you know, we've got ISIS claiming responsibility, and people want to know what would take a 64-year-old man and make him decide to shoot into a crowd of people. And of course, all the expert firearms people are all over the radio, and oh, that had to be an AK-15 that was converted, and blah blah. You don't know what it was. No. You know, they're saying, oh, we must use hollow point ammunition, and you know what? I'm sure that the reports will come out on what type of ammunition, what type of firearm. All of that will be made public.
Which, by the way, is totally irrelevant because you have 50 people dead. Doesn't
exactly.
matter.
Doesn't matter what type of ammunition.
Whether it was a .223, whether it was a .552, whether it was a hollow point, or whether it was an armor-piercing round. It really doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter what type of weapon it was fired out of. Right. The reality is there are 50 people dead.
And over 400 injured.
And 400 injured, probably many of them in the rush to get out, because that's what happens a lot when you have a situation like this. They'll trample each other. Half of them will trample each other. And, so that's the issue. And the other problem is what the motivation is, what the factors are, will have to be sorted out. But like we said earlier, I talked to someone who called me today to talk about that, and it said, well, I heard, one of the reports I heard said he was on the roof, and the other one said, no, he was firing out a window, and it's like, no, so you heard the SWAT team, so if they blew a door, unless
somebody went to extreme to create a fake.
Well, no, there are doors to the roof.
True, that is true.
There's a door to the roof. They could have, but I mean. But that's the whole thing. The whole thing is all this stuff is not really relevant. What's relevant is, what happened, the cost in human life, the cost in injuries, and then what is the reason for this? So we're going to find out the reason, and either reason is, it's either terrorism or you've got another case of somebody
Couldn't afford his meds.
with mental issues that has weapons. So,
Right.
and so that's the thing. It's a tragic situation, but realistically, a lot of the stuff is like the big debate on what kind of weapon it is to me totally irrelevant.
I agree.
It's all stuff it's like news filler today.
Yep.
They've got the thing, so they're going to bring in the expert. I think it was an AK-47. No, it wasn't. It was a SKS or something. We don't care. 30. Whatever they want to determine. But like I said, it doesn't make any difference if whatever they were using. And it was a situation where, as you said, unfortunately, when you got a sniper and he's got a crowd that large, it's fundamentally like you don't have to be the greatest shot in the world. It's like shooting fish in a barrel.
Yeah, and the thing is that, this guy also had a couple of, besides being so high up and the crowd being contained, because there were walls around this area which was containing the crowd, and the walls were put up to keep people out, not to keep people in, but guess what? They also keep people in. But he also had gravity working on his side, because gravity's pulling those bullets down. It's not like when you're firing, across and it's pulling them down. They're going down. So gravity is speeding up the projectile. And
well, if it's an assault weapon, it's got a very high muzzle velocity. And the problem is whenever you snipers always try to get high ground.
Exactly.
It's better angle for the shot, better angle for, even defensively, you always try to get, a elevated position if it's easier to defend. And that's one of the reasons that makes Afghanistan such a horrific place to have a war. That's the reason Genghis Khan took off, didn't go in, and the Russians spent 10 years there, broke their economy. You can't win. The mountains of Afghanistan, the Afghanis always get the high ground. There's a lot of valleys and choke points, what they call choke points, which means that people can't get through there quickly because it's narrow. So those are classic areas for ambushes. And the thing is that he got up high, so obviously the guy, he knew a little bit about, he didn't like walk into the crowd and open up like some of these people do. That he obviously had a little bit of knowledge about what the best way to do it was. And as a sniper, he took a position, and I'm sure it was a horrific scene. So.
Yeah, and up to about an hour ago, the entire strip was in lockdown. About an hour ago, the sheriff out there started going through each of the hotels and running all their people through security and making sure that they were cleared out. And now, by now or within the next hour, all the hotels will be opened up again. The strip will be open, except for down at along 91 and the crime scene. That will obviously be closed. But I'll tell you now, I bet you Mandalay Bay can't pay people to book a room there right this minute. So,
yeah, well, obviously, and it's no fault of theirs, obviously.
No, it isn't.
But it is going to really have a devastating impact on the hotel for now, and a devastating impact on Las Vegas in general, because
that was always the safest place to go.
Yeah. And actually, the security in Vegas is probably some of the best I've ever seen anywhere. It's one of the few places that a lot of people, if you've never been to Vegas, most of those casinos, they don't have security guards walking around with flashlights. They're all packing.
Yeah.
Most security in Las Vegas, they have weapons. So, they've got pretty high security. So this guy really had to plan this because.
And from the reports that I have, they have a 24-hour SWAT team on duty, not on call.
Yeah. On
duty, 24 hours a day. I mean, can you imagine the cost to maintain a 24-hour SWAT team?
Yeah. Well, that city, obviously, is super dependent. Their entire economy is based on having people go there.
Exactly.
And that's the reason that they have such a tremendous police presence. And they really, it's one of the safest places to go because they really police the tourist areas because, let's face it, that's their livelihood. It's the lifeblood of that community. That community, if they begin to lose tourists,
they can't pay their bills.
They can't pay the bills.
And that's the major issue. And that's always a problem. But enough with the national news. I think 15 minutes, 16 minutes spent on the national news might be a little bit enough.
Well, I don't know. There are 50 people have perished and stuff. But like I said, right now we don't have. We'll touch on it on the next show. We'll have a lot more information by Wednesday's show, and we'll be able to, maybe have a few more minutes.
I don't want this to become another 9/11 thing where for the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, all we're hearing about is this. The last major disaster like this was the Florida bar shooting, the Pulse bar shooting. And that was 49 people were killed. And that now, what is it, a competition by now this is 50 people or more. Because remember, those 400 plus people that are injured, we don't know how seriously they're injured. We just know there's injuries. Somebody else may die yet, God forbid, but we have to really look at what we as a community, what we as a society are doing. Because now all of a sudden, what happens after this again. Oh, gun control. Guns don't kill people. People kill people.
Yeah. The problem is the only thing you do by eliminating guns is create a black market for guns where where the gun runners will make more money because somebody really and obviously this guy planned it.
Yes.
And he had some serious planning. And he would have got weapons regardless from somewhere, black market or whatever.
There's plenty of places on the internet. There's gun shows, especially in Nevada. There are gun shows everywhere.
Yeah, there are gun ranges.
They have gun ranges.
Yeah,
they're truly the true story of the Old West. It's okay to carry firearms in public. That's just the way it is. In a lot of communities, Texas is the same way. If you're not walking down the streets of Texas with a gun on your hip, there's a problem, it seems, in some communities.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you can unfortunately kill a lot more people more quickly than with a weapon. But I remember a couple of years ago when we were they were talking about guns. There were more people killed in the United States with hammers,
right,
than were with firearms. So. But that, they don't ban hammers. But the fact is, obviously, you can do a lot more damage. But the reality is, as you said, it's not a weapon that does it. But the problem is that, what are we going to do? If you look at most of these crimes, they're either terrorist-based, which you're never going to stop, or the person has got a few cans missing out of his six-pack.
Right.
And if that's the case, how do you tell that? Some people look fairly normal, and they've got 4 cans missing out of the six-pack.
Right. It's just craziness. Well, let's move on to some local news that's not so horrendous, or maybe it is.
It is. Yeah, it is.
Marc Dion again.
Not good article.
Always good for the Monday morning, laugh. I'll tell you now. You want to see failure? Behold, the Fall River City Council gaze upon Jason Correa, mayor of Fall River.
Yeah, I like that next paragraph. You
want to see failure?
That's it.
You want to see big floppity failure? You want to see backlit, shining failure? You want to see failure that stands out like the ears stand out on a bunny rabbit's head? You want the Sasquatch of failure? The Loch Ness Monster of failure? Come with me. Behold, the Fall River City Council gaze upon Jason Correa, mayor of Fall River. The mayor who wants a $1 million streetscape outside his window decided it was a good idea to put a road over the city's walking trail. Just what we want. Asphalt over a bunny rabbit. As he mentions later on in his article, you see that little bunny rabbit? Just dump some asphalt on him.
Yeah. And he hits it on the head again about then they talk about they don't read anything.
They don't.
And it was like, the paragraph that's really got me. It's like when he talked about the city council, which ain't that used to reading, took one, and I mean one, look at a proposed road and voted for it, without debate, without questions, without asking for clarification, unanimously. Ever tried getting all 9 of them to grant anything? This they agree on. And then he said, you know, ever watch the city council discuss a $2,000 expenditure on new pencils for the tax collector's office? Takes hours. Everybody's got to face the camera and talk. Steve Camara has to clue you in on the social justice aspect of pencil procurement. Pamela Liberté-LeBeau has to tell you how much her children love pencils. Then after 2 hours of deliberation, the vote is 6-3 in favor. Democracy, she is saved. You know, paving over the rail, no discussion, no speeches, bang. You know, and that's the thing. You know, and it's like, and that's always been one of the problems I have with the council. They always say, well, they don't have any power. But certain issues they think they're feel-good apple pie, you know, mom issues, and they all get together because they feel that if they vote against this or look into it, they're going to be perceived as negative, obstructionist, the things we're called all the time on this show. And that's not true. You know, you should have looked into this thing, and you should look into everything that comes before you. It's your job. And if you did that, maybe we would have avoided this mess. But we didn't. And that's one of the problems. How many times have you seen in the council, some group is looking for something, and they bring in all their members, and they all sit in the seats, and the councilors look at like deer in the headlights because they see all these people, and they don't see people, they see votes. And they go, oh, God, I don't care what this is. I got to support it. Look, they've got 40 people in a council chamber. And the same thing with this issue. It's like, oh, a walking trail. Oh, it's going to be so wonderful. Who's going to attack that? It's like, well, you know, is it in the best interest of the city? Are the contracts done up right? Are we going to have to deal with $300,000 or $400,000 worth of legal fees because nobody could figure out how to do it right? And that's one of the problems, you know, and unfortunately, this is what happens in Fall River, business as usual. You know, the thing is, it's like, look, we always say, don't believe us, research. If we tell you something, we're not asking you to take it as gospel. We'll say it, we'll give you the proof that we have, or if it's our opinion, we'll tell you. And we tell you to go out and look into it. And, you know, this is the thing. You know, the mayor, the mayor and the city council are obligated, or they're supposed to be obligated, to represent our best interests. And that means whenever they spend even a penny or approve anything, they're supposed to investigate it and look at the forest, not just the tree. And because they don't, this is what we end up with.
Hey, Fall River at its best. But you know what's interesting, as I reported in the Weekend Flush, Mr. Carrig, who wants this rail trail proposal, over $3,600 to Mayor Correa in campaign contributions. He gave I believe $250 or $500 to Sam Sutter. He gave $2,000 to Will Flanagan. Will Flanagan told him no. Guess what? The money stopped. Sam Sutter didn't even look at it. Money stopped. Mr. Carrig gave this guy $3,600+, him and his family, in less than 2 years. And he got the road. And it gets even better. Guess who else got money from that? Senator Michael Rodrigues and City Councilor Joe Camara.
Pure coincidence.
Pure coincidence. Pure coincidence, okay? And also State Representative Carol Fiola, who doesn't even represent this district.
But she likes rail trails.
Yeah, but she likes rail trails, obviously. She wants to put a road over it. Maybe she doesn't want to put a road over it. Maybe he was just trying to get some influence because she sits on the Ways and Means Committee. And what does the Ways and Means Committee do?
Finds the ways and the means to fund it. That's what they do. But I'm going with Loch Ness Monster of failure since it's near the South Watuppa. So.
Yeah, exactly. We've got our own Loch Ness Monster now.
That's right.
It's called the Watuppa Loch.
That's right.
hey, the crime stats in Fall River are down, but we're worse than everyone else. Yay, we're #1.
Everybody's stats are down. Maybe it's the way they're looking at the stats, but as it says, you know, we have more than New Bedford, Lynn, and well, you know, in similar-sized cities. It has reported more violent crime.
In 2016, Fall River had more reported violent crimes, 966 of them, than similar-sized cities such as New Bedford, which had 819, and Lynn, which had 714. Fall River also had more rapes, 67, and aggravated assaults, 708, than both those cities. Boy, we're really top of the line here. We're #1. We're #1.
Well, you know, #1, yeah, we're #1. But look at these stats. This is why stats, you know, figures don't lie, but liars can figure. There were also 100 fewer overall property crimes, 1,700 in 2015 to 1666. That's like the devil, 666 in 2016, with corresponding drops. Well, the problem is we have fewer overall properties in some of these communities because New Bedford's larger than we are.
Well, also because 49 of them were burned by arson.
That's right, and 49. But a lot of these cities are larger than Fall River now. So that's not, you know, so they could have actually more crimes and have a lower percentage. But you look at this stuff and look, it's just like fires. In the old days when we didn't have smoke detectors and we didn't have investigations, we had a lot more car fires, we had more fires. Arson was more of a way for revenge than shooting people. Today they don't burn people out anymore, they shoot them. You know, was it right? No, but that's a fact of life. You know, in the transition when I first got on a fire department, we had many fires and many fatalities of people, you know, torching houses as a revenge factor. That doesn't happen a lot today. They kind of shoot each other. So because we have less fires in Fall River, you have to look at the picture. We're still having more fires than other communities of our size.
Right.
And it's like this, okay, you know, this is another election twist. Oh, our violent crime is down, but we still lead the league.
Exactly.
So what does that tell you? Everybody else's is down, but that's
and when you look at the fact that arsons are up to 49 from 23 last year, motor vehicle thefts increased to 237 from 179 last year, robberies increased to 190 from 175 last year, and 45 more burglaries in 2016 than the previous year.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know where they're finding all of this great stuff, but
well, thankfully, Fall River has always had one statistic. We've always been lower than a lot of these other is murders. That's the thing. We have more of everything else, but murders, we've always been a city that you don't normally see. You know, maybe I shouldn't say anything and give them a hint, but the fact is that you know, Fall River's been a community that has a lot of violent crime, but we haven't had, you know, although with all the shell casings they're finding now, we may be spiking in that category in the not too distant future. So.
I think so. And let's look at how these are classified, because the FBI classifies murder, non-negligent manslaughter, rape, robbery, and aggravated assaults as violent crime. Property crimes include burglaries, larceny thefts, motor vehicle theft, and arson. So that shows you how the numbers are calculated and where they go from there. We can't get into the comments from the mayoral candidates because we just don't have enough time. We're about ready to stand out.
And who cares? Because it's an election. They're both going to spin.
They're going to spin it like there's no tomorrow. It's going to be like a top.
And they also got greater Fall River crime stats, which, I mean, I don't even know why. You know, we're talking about urban areas versus Freetown, Somerset, Swansea, Westport, and Tiverton. I mean, that's apples and oranges.
I agree, but hey, it's Fall River and it's Fall River crime.
Remember, look out for the Loch Ness Monster and the Sasquatch.
Because it's all coming down.
That's right. And stay angry.
Stay angry, people, and we'll see you on Wednesday. And keep following what's happening. And remember, follow that money.